Good evening. Welcome to the City of Oxnard Planning Commission special meeting for Thursday, January 9, 2020. Can we have roll call, please?
Chair Frank,
Yes, here.
Vice Chair Chua,
Here.
Commissioner Chavez,
Here.
Commissioner Meyer,
Here.
Commissioner Dozier.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll now have our Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Meyer.
Please place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We're moving to item C on our agenda this evening, public comments. Do we have any speaker cards? Clerk advises me we have no speaker cards. This is an opportunity for the public to address the Planning Commission on items that are not on our agenda. I don't see anyone in the audience, so I'll close public comment. We'll move to the consent agenda. Item D, it's approval of our December 5, 2019 minutes. Everyone have an opportunity to review?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Move to approve minutes.
I'll
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Meyer, second by Chavez to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
We need an abstention from Fearing. Thank you. Moving to item E, continued public hearing. This is the planning and zoning permit number 18-530-01. This was our Verizon cell tower project. The applicant has requested, I guess all parties have requested that this item be continued to a date certain of March 5, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Chavez. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition to that? No. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move to our public hearing under item F1. This is new. So this is Verizon Rio Lindo, planning and zoning permit number 18-530-02. Our planner is J. Dobralski. Thank you.
Mr. Dobrowski, is that how you pronounce your name for record?
Yes, that's perfect, actually. Dobrowolski.
Dobralowski.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Go.
Oh, there it goes. It's warming up. Thank you, Chair Frank. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. The item before you this evening is the Verizon Rio Lindo project. That's a request for a special use permit that's known as Planning and Zoning Permit PZ 18-530-02. The applicant is also in attendance this evening. The proposed project is the construction of a 40-foot tall wireless communications facility that is designed as a faux eucalyptus tree with associated equipment. That will be located in a 540 square foot lease area, which is adjacent to an existing single-story warehouse building. This request includes one deviation to the development standards of the auto sales and service area of the Rose Santa Clara Corridor specific plan. That one deviation is an increase in maximum allowable height from 35 feet to 40 feet. This is the proposed site plan showing the proposed facility on the northeast corner of the warehouse building. This is a photo simulation of the proposed facility. Note the faux eucalyptus tree adjacent to the building. The equipment enclosure will be designed with a block wall to match the existing building. The project site is located in the auto sales and service area up in the Rose Santa Clara area. That's north of the city. And it is located just behind Ventura Boulevard and adjacent to Highway 101. The project site general plan designation is commercial regional, and the zoning designation is auto sales and service. The proposed project is consistent with both the general plan and the zoning. That discussion is outlined in the staff report. This is a view of the project site looking south from just above Ventura Boulevard. The project site is largely surrounded by auto sales as well as retail and commercial. It is bordered on the south by Highway 101. This is a view of the proposed site from Ventura Boulevard looking south. In the foreground is a car dealership, and the faux tree would be located behind that parking lot. This is another view from Ventura Boulevard. This is the access easement to the project site. In the prior to the 1960s, this project site was developed with the existing warehouse. That's over 12,000 square feet. In 2003, a minor modification was granted for an underground tank and generator. Since then, no changes have been made to the building. In 2015, the Planning Commission granted a special use permit for a 40-foot tall wireless communications facility. That facility was designed as a faux eucalyptus tree. That facility was never constructed, and consequently, the SUP expired. This is the site plan that was previously approved by the Planning Commission. Note the faux tree is in the same location. The equipment was located on the roof of the warehouse building. Also, 2 real trees were included in that project, one just north of the facility and one just south of the facility. This is a photo simulation of the previously approved facility. The faux eucalyptus tree is located in the photo on the left, and then the photo on the right is the existing condition. This is the proposed project showing the faux eucalyptus tree and the equipment area next to the building. Staff is recommending that 2 real trees also be included to blend the faux tree with the existing treescape. Back in 2015, that project was designed as a 40-foot tall eucalyptus tree. The current project before you is designed as a 40-foot eucalyptus tree. So there was no change in height from the previously approved project and the one before you this evening. Back in 2015, the facility required a 14% increase in maximum allowable height, which is consistent with the proposal today. The auto sales and service area in the Rose Santa Clara corridor specific plan allows a maximum height of 35 feet. The proposal before you is for a 40-foot tall eucalyptus tree. That additional height is required so that the facility can connect to the Verizon network over the warehouse building located to the west of the facility, and also so that the signal from the facility can project over the adjacent commercial building that's on the east of the facility. Therefore, staff recommends the additional height of this facility. This is a photo simulation of the proposed faux eucalyptus tree from Ventura Boulevard looking south. Note at that time the car dealership was not yet developed. This is another view from the access easement looking south. And finally, another photo simulation from the end of the access easement looking at the project. The applicant has submitted radio frequency coverage maps to demonstrate the need for the additional 5 feet in height. Without the proposed facility, certain areas in the El Rio neighborhood do not receive cell coverage. If the facility was built at 28 feet high, certain areas in El Rio would receive coverage. At 33 feet in height, those areas would receive more coverage. Note that the applicant is requesting a 33-foot high rad center. At 38 feet in height, there is no significant increase in coverage. Therefore, staff is recommending the 33-foot high rad center. Note that these maps show the low band. The following maps show the high band. Again, without the site, areas in El Rio do not receive coverage. At 28 feet in height, areas do get coverage. At 33 feet, they receive more coverage. And at 38 feet, there's no substantial increase in coverage. Thus, staff recommends the requested 33-foot high rad center. This project will be subject to certain conditions of approval. Some of those conditions require the installation of 2 24-inch box-sized eucalyptus trees to blend the faux eucalyptus tree with the treescape. Also, the screening elements of the faux tree must be maintained throughout the life of the permit. The permit would be granted for 10 years. And furthermore, the facility must comply with all FCC regulations. The project is new construction located within a 540 square foot lease area and does not trigger any thresholds in the city CEQA guidelines or the exceptions to the exemptions. Thus, staff recommends you find this project exempt from CEQA pursuant to section 15303. This site is not located next to residential uses. Notice of this hearing was posted on site and also sent to surrounding property owners. To date, staff has not received any public comments regarding this project. Therefore, staff recommends that your commission approve the project as conditioned, finding it to be categorically exempt and subject to certain findings and conditions. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions as well as the applicant.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this level of analysis and that you listened to us on looking at the coverage areas and the differences in the height, and it's really good and very clear. Commissioners, any questions of our planner?
Yep.
Commissioner Fearing.
Yep. In 2015, the 40-foot height was approved. Was there a reason it was extended 5 feet back then? And I understand now it's because there's a new building there, right? That's preventing it from being 35 feet, correct?
Commissioner Fearing, yes, to address the additional height requested back in 2015, again, the facility faced the same constraints. The applicant is available to answer more in detail.
Thank you.
Commissioner Meyer.
Yes, just a technical question about what's the role of the high band and the low band, and what should that mean to us?
Commissioner Meyer, to address the low band and high band, the applicant can speak more in detail. However, staff's understanding is that the low band gets better penetration, for example, through walls, and provides further coverage. The high band provides more capacity for existing networks and requires more sites in order to handle that capacity.
Thank you.
Chua? Chavez?
Thank you for the presentation. Just a couple of questions. Slide 12, where it shows previous 2015 site plan, it shows the faux tree and then two real trees, and that the equipment's on top of the building. I don't know if this is a question for you or maybe the applicant, but the reasoning why now the equipment's being placed on the bottom next to the faux tree versus the building?
Commissioner Chavez, I'm going to let the applicant answer that.
Okay.
However, staff's understanding is that the equipment is more conveniently accessed from the ground next to the site.
Okay. How long do special use permits last for? What's their lifespan before they expire?
Regarding wireless communications facilities, special use permits are granted for 10 years.
Okay, so in 2015 it was approved, but it expired?
That's correct. The site was never constructed. There was a 24-month time window in which to construct the project.
So if they don't start construction within that time window, then essentially that 10 years kind of go out the window?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you for that clarification. In regards to the real trees, you said that staff's recommending that the two real trees be placed in the proposed project. What's staff's reasoning for wanting that?
For what?
For wanting the fake tree, the real trees with the fake tree?
Oh,
Yes, regarding staff's recommendation for the real trees, there currently are very few trees on the project site. There is essentially one tree on the south side of the building to screen the warehouse from the view of Highway 101. That tree is only about 21 feet in height. And so there are a few eucalyptus trees in the area. And so by providing two additional real eucalyptus trees next to the faux eucalyptus tree, the site would better blend in with the existing vegetation.
And we don't have any views from the Highway 101, like looking onto the site. It's just everything around it besides that view, right? Or
Yes,
did I
that's
miss
correct.
it? Okay. And then I believe that might be for the applicant. All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
anyone else? I have a question. Approving this height variance, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. If a project comes forward that blocks, that's higher than the 40 feet, that's going to block, is it going to block the signals here such that if we approve this, we're precluding a higher development somewhere around this tower?
Chair
Does that-
Frank,
do you
that's a great
underst-
question. The short answer is no, we do not preclude development from other properties from happening, provided that those developments would be consistent with the zoning regulations in place on the property where development would occur.
Well, we
That-
have that though here, and we're asking to go higher because their signal is being blocked by an existing building.
Understood. An adjacent property could still construct to the height that they would otherwise be allowed to through a discretionary process, at which point in time the applicant and property owner that we're talking to tonight would have a choice to make. Do they allow their facility to keep operating in that blocked capacity, or do they seek to modify their existing permit in some way to go for an additional height at that point in time?
So the burden would be on the holder of this special use permit.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners have no further questions of our planners, so Mr. Applicant, would you like to come up and speak with us? I feel like you know, you're in the family. So just come on up, Scott.
Good evening. Thank you for having me again. I did prepare a quick presentation too here, just to kind of highlight a few things. Thanks. This here was where we started back in 2015, and this is the area of the search ring provided that we were looking for locations to provide the facility to cover the network hole that we have here. A is obviously it's the Frontier building. It's the Frontier switch, which we are proposing this application. The other locations are across the freeway. One was at a yard. The other one was at the Best Buy, and then another one was at the Walmart. These are also so. On the far left is the proposed location. That was our candidate A. Candidate B was across the highway. It was Coastline Equipment. Candidate C was the Walmart area that we looked at, and candidate D, the Best Buy. We did approach all these properties within the area. The Frontier building was willing to work with us, and so that's where we've ended up. The other three were not interested when we pursued it. As we start looking, we like to look for co-location opportunities. That's the first thing that we like to do. I did a mile radius search from our area, which puts us outside of our search ring, and there are two towers, and they're highlighted in the blue there, and then the red is the area that is the candidate that we have, and as you can see, they're further away and they're outside of the area that we needed the coverage in, so we didn't pursue the co-location opportunities. This is just a quick picture of the area that we're proposing, the faux eucalyptus and the equipment, and an overview plan as well. Photo simulations, which Mr. Debrowski's already shown. Another one. And a third. And just a quick elevation of what we're proposing. We're proposing 12 antennas, a microwave dish, and then an equipment enclosure encased with the CMU block. Here's the coverage maps that were shared already. The area, this is without the site. As you can see to the north, there's the blue area, which is receiving very little to no coverage, and the white is absolutely zero coverage at this time. And then with the facility, you can see that the green starts to move in for better coverage. And this is just a standalone of what this facility will actually provide coverage-wise. The additional height that we're asking for is important to Verizon, mainly because of one of them is the microwave dish. For us to get a backhaul to allow the facility to work, we need to microwave in it's the telco. It's that helps provide, and that can microwave that in, and we're looking at a microwave shot which comes up over the existing building, the Frontier building there, and we need to be able to clear the building, so that's why we have set the microwave just above the rooftop so that we can achieve the microwave and the backhaul solution at this location. And also, the additional height we're seeking is to allow for the antennas to propagate over the existing facility to the east and get up over the rooftop and be able to provide a 360 propagation of the facility. This is a shot from the freeway. If you can see that there are the existing eucalyptus in the picture there, and the facility will be placed back beyond to the north there. That really concludes my presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Wonderful. Commissioners, any questions of the applicant?
Just one.
Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I just had one question about the microwave process. It's a line of sight technique, right?
Yes,
Meaning it has to be. And where is it aimed at? I'm just.
Let me go back. So Verizon has existing facilities, and so they will be taking the backhaul microwave from one site to this new site, and it'll be over to the left. So we're aiming up over. So we're actually aiming kind of northwest is the direction that we will be provided the backhaul solution.
And because of the technique that's used, there's not a lot of leeway for adjusting where you need that microwave dish to reside.
What they do go out and they go out and they find the donor site is what they call it, and then they do a mirror test.
Right.
They get the line of sight down, and then that's the angle that they point the microwave at.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you again for the presentation.
Wonderful. Commissioner Vice Chair Chua.
Hi, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Is there any option to that dish? Instead of dish, can you connect to the telco through lines? Because I know that that's been a standard process somewhere else.
Yeah, there are two options. You can connect to existing fiber optics
Right.
in the area, or a microwave solution. And
So why not fiber optic? Because the thing is, the less equipment we see, the less industrial it looks. So if there's an option to do something else to minimize the visual impact of this, I mean, no matter how you look at it, it's still going to look like a cell site. But if there's no 4-foot wide dish on it, it would be better, don't you think?
we're going with a 2-foot, and it is tucked back into the facility with
Well, it
branches.
says a 4-foot diameter antenna on your presentation.
I believe we're 2-foot.
24-inch bottom.
No, it says proposing 4-foot microwave dish to connect. Back, right there.
Second paragraph.
Second paragraph.
Generally, they do a 2-foot. I think they could probably do a 2-foot at this location.
Well, can they connect to fiber optic? Because fiber optic is reliable as well.
It is very reliable. You are
Exactly.
correct. We do have a sort of a dilemma with the property that we're working on. Since it is a frontier provider, they're not allowing any additional services to compete into their property. So at this point, we're trying to microwave in the backhaul solution for the facility to work.
Wait, so they don't want a competing facility going into their facility?
Well, since Frontier is a provider, they don't want a competing company.
Right, but that only will serve Verizon. That fiber optic line going to the telco line there is only serving Verizon, not anybody else.
You are correct, but it is coming into their property.
Right.
Through fiber optics.
Verizon instead of Frontier.
But that's a commercial area. There's no line there.
Does Frontier have lines there?
Frontier is starting to do fiber optics at this point, but it could be a while off. So that's why we
see.
included
Okay.
the backhaul
But
solution.
yeah, I mean, it's doable.
It's doable in the future, yes.
Why not now?
Well, Frontier doesn't have the facility at that location.
So it's not, so you're telling me that it's impossible for Verizon to be able to backhaul through the telco system, right?
Through the fiber optic system.
Through fiber optics,
Yes.
but not, what about regular telco?
They're going to fiber optics at this time because there's so much traffic that's being used. So the new standard is fiber optics that we're looking at.
That's the new standards that Verizon prefer, right?
Yes, to optimize the site and the amount of money that they're putting into the facility, they'd like to have this facility work properly.
So the microwave here is facing northwest, you said? So that's, okay, so you won't see it from the freeway. You'll probably see it from the street. That's fine. Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Chavez.
Just piggybacking on Vice Chair Chua's comments in regards to the fiber optics, is this has to do with the fact that there's not really the foundation on the site to be able to do that?
What do you mean by the foundation?
Well, I mean, like, I see what the Vice Chair is talking about, why not just do it now as opposed to waiting later on? But I'm assuming that Verizon's looking at it more as a cost-effective, which is the cheapest way to do it, fiber cables or the microwave, correct?
So fiber optics are starting to come into the area, and the point of connection could be several miles off at this point. So it would be a lot of trenching, a lot of running cable to get it to this location. I think once the infrastructure increases and fiber optics is in better supply, then I think that they would go fiber optics.
And you just answered my question when I asked if they have the foundation to be able to do it, and you just said it's going to take a lot of trenching and running wire to be able to do that. So thank you for that. In the staff's report, they showed two different designs for the eucalyptus tree, one from 2015 and then the one that's being proposed now. Why the difference between the two designs? And I don't know if our planner can bring up that slide from the staff report, slide 15. And while he's bringing that up, I'll ask in regards to your presentation of the four candidates, when did you approach all the four candidates?
So I approached them in 2017 when we first initially started to come back to this site because it was expiring, and that's when I went out and actually approached those. So it was, I don't know the month, but it was in 2017.
Okay.
And then we got to this location, and
So it was relatively recent.
Yes.
It wasn't like you talked to them in 2007. So,
No.
all right, Mr.
Scott.
No,
Mr. D.
Planner J. Can I get slide 15, please? So as you see in the 2015 design and the 2020 design, why the difference between the two designs?
there's different manufacturers. There's a couple different manufacturers. We went with a slimmer one, just for reasons that we thought it would be smaller, more compact. I mean, if the 2015 design is something that the commission would like to see, that's not an issue. It was just a matter of picking which manufacturer we wanted to go
Okay.
with.
Now, I know this isn't a Verizon site, it's a Frontier property. Are they aware that staff is recommending to place 2 real trees on the property? And what are their take on that?
They are aware. They are in agreement that we can go ahead and do that. They weren't thrilled, but they are.
So
in
they're
agreement.
okay with doing
Yes.
that. The Madam Chair had asked staff in regards to development on properties surrounding the proposed project, building heights. Now, is this going to be something that Verizon potentially may come back and request an amendment to the project, or will you be okay with just capping at the 40 feet?
As it is today, we're good with the 40 feet. If there was a building that came up that was, say, 60 feet and blocked a significant amount of coverage, we have a right of relocation with the property owner where we can kind of massage it and move the facility around and see if we can get around that building. It's happened. I've seen it happen before where, you know, a building goes up to and it blocks a facility. And it's just something that the carrier has to deal with. They either have to relocate or they open up a whole new search ring and they go out and they look again for another facility that won't be blocked and that may be on a different property, maybe somewhere else, but it has happened. So at this time, since the Audi dealership has come in and they haven't built a high building, and I think mostly everything around there is pretty well developed, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Okay. I just went blank on the question.
Okay, Commissioner Fearing.
How often is maintenance done on
Once a
these
month.
sites?
They go out at least once a month.
Once a month, they
Yeah.
check it out,
Yes,
determine if any of the branches have fallen, they fix them.
correct, yes.
Okay. So what's typical around in the city of Oxnard?
What's typical maintenance?
Yep.
I mean, what do they do? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, what do they do and how often is it actually necessary? Average.
Well, they go once a month just to service. You know, they go in and they check the computers, the facility, and they keep it clean. I mean, they have technicians that are assigned to certain areas. So Verizon has a technician assigned to the Oxnard area, and to be honest, they like to keep their sites clean. They like, you know, there are incentives for them to keep their facilities clean, and they do. So they get very particular if somebody goes in there without their notice. So they treat them as their own.
The intent is to have a faux tree because it looks like a tree.
Yes.
So how long do those branches look like a tree before they have to be replaced? Typically.
I would say they're running about 10, 15 years before they start to degrade some, and then they will come in and they'll rebranch the tree.
So that Verizon has a process that once this gets approved, 10, 15-year lifespan, they're going to go and revisit.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may, for the
Please.
benefit of the commission, we have several conditions that are baked into the resolution that talk about maintenance of the facility, the leaves, the bark, those features that make it look as much like a tree as it can. If the city receives complaints or if city staff determine that it's not up to our standards, we have the ability to send code enforcement out and essentially be proactive with making sure that this maintains the look that it's intended to have.
You're done? Vice Chair Chua?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question. So you're saying that earlier you made a statement that it's okay to have a 2-foot diameter antenna instead of 4-foot, right?
Yes, I've seen 2-foot.
So you're okay with that?
Yes.
So if we impose that condition, you won't have that problem complying, right?
No, I don't.
Good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I don't have anything for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair,
It's time, I'm sorry,
so
go ahead.
one quick housekeeping item. I don't believe we did ex parte communications for this item.
Has anyone had an ex parte on this? No.
None.
No ex parte,
Okay,
thank you.
all.
Okay, it's time for public comment on this agenda item. Are there any speaker cards? Are there any written comments? Okay, and there's nobody in the audience except for the applicant. So I'll close public comment. Deliberations, anybody? Vice Chair Chua.
Okay, first, thank you, staff, for listening to the Planning Commission. I'd like to echo what Madam Chair has stated earlier. Looking at these sites better than, looking at it more, taking a closer look at all these sites. As far as this is concerned, I've always have an issue with deviation from height or from standards. In this case, though, I think it was justified to support an increase in height of 5 feet. I do understand how this thing works, so I think yes, it's a necessity, and we have findings in there that cannot be used by other regular people. I mean regular businesses who just want a higher building than what they're supposed to have. So I can support this, provided that the dish antenna is reduced down to 24 inches or 2 feet instead of the existing 4 feet. If we could add a condition to that effect, I'll be happy to support it. Thank you.
Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, staff, and thank you, applicant, for the excellent presentations. I just wanted to comment that living across the street from El Rio, I have a lot of friends and know a lot of people that live in that neighborhood, and they are constantly complaining about the terrible coverage. So anything that will improve the residents' service, I'm for. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Fearing.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. Along with Commissioner Chua, I can support the project as long as the microwave dish is 2 feet. Thank you.
Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you for all the presentations, and to my fellow commissioners for their comments. I like the idea, like Commissioner Dozier said, to improve the service area for the residents. North Oxnard in this particular area is developing rather quickly, which means there's a lot more residents in this area. I personally would like to see the 2015 design for the project, only for the purposes that that one looks a little bit more real to me as opposed to a slimmer version of it, and I think it would mesh very well with the real trees. I agree with all the other comments in regards to the 2-inch 24-inch microwave, and I as well can support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer.
Question, Chair. My only comment would be towards our planning department in regards to eucalyptus trees. So is that something that should be addressed in regard to eucalyptus trees?
But you said something before that.
My comment would be addressed to our planning department itself.
Oh, department, okay.
Right, so it's not really relevant to the vote here, but we could address it
Part of
in
deliberation.
planning commission
You have
business.
another question? Oh,
It's more towards, it's in terms of concern about use of eucalyptus trees.
which variety? You're going to have to give a variety. You know, I happen to know a lot about eucalyptus trees.
Oh, you do?
I do. I've represented people where eucalyptus trees have just fallen straight over onto them, onto their trucks, onto their houses. Rain, wind, cold weather, frigidity, dead limbs. They're very heavy. So
Right.
they're originally Australian. They were brought here.
Yeah.
But there's a whole variety of them. They have different root ball construction. It's very interesting. So I'm sure you'll pick the appropriate eucalyptus tree. You know, the oak trees, I think, probably grow too slow.
Oh, you don't want oak trees.
No, and you don't want those. So, you know, eucalyptus,
Believe me.
if they have leaves all the time.
There are those concerns, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
my concerns are more that it is, as you mentioned, from Australia, it's a non-native, it's an invasive tree, it's a high fire hazard tree. I know that throughout the state, we're looking at how can we get rid of eucalyptus trees because we're so bought into eucalyptus trees, especially here in Southern
Right.
California with our
Wind
wind corridors and farms. Comment on that?
Yes, definitely. The Planning Commission does have the ability to say a eucalyptus tree might not be the appropriate species here.
Okay, good. I think we should say that.
And there can be a different species that's suggested instead. What the planning staff was going for was what is a large tree of the same size. There are other species that are out there. If, for instance, California sycamore could be
Oh.
something that would be potentially very large, of a similar magnitude in terms of the canopy. If there's a different species that the Planning Commission feels is appropriate, or if there are certain characteristics of a tree without identifying the specific one,
There you go.
we can work with our landscape architect on contract to figure out what is the appropriate species relative to roots, relative to building, so on and so forth. That is something that's definitely within the purview of the Planning Commission.
Yeah,
Well, in my opinion, we should not call out a tree species because
we don't know.
it may affect the operation of the cell sites, depending on the density of the leaves or during the wet season or whatever. So,
Whether waxy leaf or not.
yeah,
'cause that-
I would just rather have, specify whatever type of faux tree, if that's Commissioner,
Well, the one on the left is a eucalyptus,
yeah, the one, that one looks more like
Christmas
a pine tree.
pine tree.
Yeah, so I agree with Commissioner Chavez
Yeah.
about the species of the tree, and I guess that's not a problem with the applicant.
So do the other two the other two, the real trees that are going in there don't have to be eucalyptus? And I think what Commissioner Meyer is suggesting is that your landscape people take a look at an alternative type of tree for that, given what we've gone through with the eucalyptus in the last 3 years.
And it has to be a minimum of 24 inches box.
Oh, of course.
So as I'm writing down some notes, I think it would be condition number 24, which is the one that we call out that two trees would be needed, a 24-inch box. And I think the language that we'll end up putting in there for the Planning Commission instead is essentially a large canopy tree, preference for native species of equal stature to a
Right.
eucalyptus tree, something along that
Subject to
line.
the review by the city's landscape architect. if we
That's
have one.
already in
Yeah, in
that
the
condition as
condition.
well.
Right.
Yeah.
There's one other quick note that I made too. There's the mention that we condition the project for the microwave dish itself to be reduced from 48 to 24 inches. We can include that one as well. There's one other suggestion that we have. There was interest in facilitating a process to make removal of that microwave dish as easy as possible. Typically, if someone's going to get an approval like this and then they change it, they would have to come in and get another permit through the planning department, a thing called a minor modification. You can bake into this current approval essentially a carrot approach, if you will. And essentially the language that we wrote down was removal of the microwave antenna and connection to an underground fiber optic line is authorized by this permit and will not require a minor
Yes.
modification permit.
I agree.
Good, good. Okay, any other deliberation? No? Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Vice Chair Chua moves the recommended action with the modifications to the
To the size of the dish
to the
antenna,
the resolution.
as far as the tree species and the type of the faux tree that's to be used should be a eucalyptus, same model as the one that's used in 2015.
After that is seconded, if we could confirm with the applicant that the 2015 model is still available.
Okay, or
Okay.
as close to it.
Or close to it, yeah.
Second, anybody? Oh, who's second? Chavez, second. Motion by Vice Chair Chua, second by Chavez. May we inquire of the applicant? Yes. Can you tell us what the status, we're approaching you now as a consumer. Is the 2015 design still available?
Yes, it is.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, roll call.
Vice Chair Chua,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Fruehring,
Yes.
Commissioner Dozier,
Yes.
Chair Frank,
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Good job. Okay, we'll move to item G on our agenda, study sessions/reports. Our first G1 is overview of development projects in Oxnard. This is being put on by our Community Development Director, Jeff Lambert, and Scott Kolwitz, Planning and Environmental Services Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to do it from the podium because I'm just frankly more comfortable up here. And I think this is number one, it's a response to the commission who asked for this report on overview of development. I think just to be clear, the commission specifically wanted a presentation on development in South Oxnard. But when we started putting this together, we realized there's a lot happening across the whole city, so it definitely includes South Oxnard. But the goal here is to provide you an overview of everything happening in the city from a development perspective. And it looks like we have a moment to pull the presentation. We can do a 2-minute recess? Yes. Just a second.
He and I talked about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. apologize for that technical difficulty. As I said, this was originally requested by the commission to focus on South Oxnard projects. We thought we'll give you the whole city and you can see where the South Oxnard projects are. We organized this presentation by project type. So we started with the residential projects. We'll talk about commercial, industrial, institutional, and then we'll talk about efforts that we're working on in the department that are not project specific, just to give you a sense of what's ahead of you. But as you can see from this overall map, the projects really are showing activity all over the city, and we'll walk through each of these. I would also say in putting this together, it really shows the amount of activity happening as we speak in Oxnard from a development perspective. And some of these projects have been around and you'll know them. Some are on the verge of coming forward. So we tried to articulate if they're under construction, approved, or just recently filed, so you get a feel for it. So this is a project that you know probably of, a Vineyard and Ventura Road, 152 units. It's under construction, well under construction, and towards the end of that construction phase of that project is underway, called the Gallery at River Ridge. This one has been in the city's world in the last few months. This was a long ago approved project called North Shore at Mandalay Bay, 292 units. You might recall the council, we presented an item to council late last year, which was saying that I, as a director, were prepared to issue the final map. We delayed that decision so we could work with some community members on some of the concerns they had, but that final map was approved. We haven't seen from the applicant when they're planning to move forward, but it has reached the point of its final map being approved late last year. Avalon Homes, this is a proposed project at Harbor and Woolley. As you see, 65 units, single family and duplexes, and this is obviously in the proposed phase, not yet approved and working its way through. Anacapa Townhomes, this is an approved project at West Woolley as well. It's in the plan check process now. The final map was approved in November of last year. 50 single-family detached dwelling units. Channel Island Apartments, this is under construction. You probably have seen this project. 72 apartments and market rate and affordable mix of units in the city on Channel Islands Boulevard. Johnson Road Apartments, residential project obviously on Johnson Road, affordable units. It's also one of our AHOP sites, our affordable housing sites, and it's a affordable housing project. Saviors Road Housing, this is an approved project, currently in plan check, relatively small, 20 townhomes, does have an affordable housing component as well. Pleasant Valley Senior Assisted Living, this is the remaining piece. The larger part of this project has already been constructed, and this is a senior project adjacent. I know from the applicant's perspective that they haven't been able to find the market for this particular phase of the project, so they might be rethinking this project. And this is the senior part. They haven't made that decision yet, but it's something they're looking forward in the future. But the larger part of that project has been built and is occupied. Cabrillo also has a project on Edding Road, Cabrillo Economic Development Corporation. So this is another affordable project. It's approved. I don't believe it's in plan check yet, but they're sort of moving towards the plan check process. And they made a minor modification to the roof line and adding some additional solar panels beyond what was originally in the approval because they needed to do that to meet some of the point systems they have for their affordable housing funding. Cypress Garden City on Cypress Road. This is another approved project. 72-bed legal non-conforming farm labor project in the process as well. Las Cortes, this is a housing authority project on Marquita and First Street, also proposed. Part of this has already been built, and they're building out the rest of the project going forward. F Street condos, this is a project that is in plan check. It's been approved. Where it's working its way through the final stages of plan check. We hope to see this under construction soon. And then G Street Apartments, this is a newer project that's been proposed. I think they had their first Development Advisory Committee meeting just recently, not ready for prime time yet, but something that's in the works adjacent to our downtown community. Portofino Place, This is 5th Street in Portofino Place. This is a proposed project that's working its way in the early stages of going through the approval process. As you note here, it does require a general plan amendment, zone change, and a special use permit, so it's got a path ahead of it before it can see approval. Heritage Homes, this is a project that was approved really just last year. The final map actually just went to council. The notice of final map went to council this week. If you've been by the site, they've started the grading process. We couldn't issue the building permit until they had the final map completed, but this is very close to coming along. I think the mayor on Tuesday night referred to this as a success story when he acknowledged it on the agenda last night. So as you might remember, it was before my time. These are originally larger units, and there was a lot of pushback that they were not going to be true single family. They might be group homes or vacation rentals. So there was pushback, and the applicant went back to the drawing board and turned out this project, which I think has been very well received. And he's already marketing the sale of these units. Heritage Homes 2 on West 2nd Street. This is also a proposed project that's working its way through. This is a former school site on 2nd Street at K. This is the same developer as the previous one. That's why it's Heritage Homes 2. But it's really just proposed, and it's beginning its way through the process. It's the reuse of that school site there on 2nd Street at K. And by the way, it largely is outside of the flight path of the airport. That's why it's been able to move through the process, or be allowed to. And there's Jane Apartments on C Street. This is a 9-unit apartment project, which is another small one, but it's proposed and working its way through the process. Doris Avenue Residences, again, 7 units, not big project. It's approved and it's in plan check. We hope to see that in construction later this year. Oakmont Senior Living, this is obviously one on Town Center that you see from the freeway. It's moving quite a far ways along in construction. We hope to have that open this spring. 85-unit senior care facility in the River Park community. That's kind of overview of the residential projects that are in the city. We're also going to talk about mixed-use projects, so you'll see some other residentials at the end. This really kind of gives you an overview of the commercial project, not surprisingly, many of them along the 101 freeway, but give you some highlights of those. So obviously there's a U-Haul project along Oxnard Boulevard to reuse the old Levitt's Furniture Building. That's been proposed. As you might know, they've moved into it in a small phase, but the overall project has not been officially approved yet. Frankly, we are having some concerns of them going ahead of their approval and working through some code compliance issues with them, but that's in the process as well. Sioux City, this was approved earlier last year on Vineyard. It was approved. I don't believe they've submitted for plan check yet, but this is a standalone building on Vineyard, sort of across from the Topa Towers area. Rancho Victoria Plaza, this is 9 buildings, 9 lots, commercial project. It's been approved, but not yet under construction. Water Drops Car Wash, this is on 5th Street at Victoria Boulevard. It's under construction. If you've been by there today, it's a little over 5,000 square foot car wash facility there. There are several other remaining properties around it, but this is the only piece of that development that's been approved for construction. Pleasant Valley Plaza renovation, this is a really good opportunity to see the reuse of this and renovation of this property. Has the Traceras Market in it. It's working its way through the process. That not only includes the renovation of the existing building, but as you can see, additional buildings on the corner. They're going through that process, but it's approved but not yet ready for construction. True Hotel, this is a brand new project that just got filed in the last couple of weeks, I believe, Scott. This is on Esplanade. It's a new hotel project, but really early in the process, and just was filed literally in the last month or so. Shopping at Rose, this is something the commission actually saw when you saw Raising Cane's alcohol request several months ago. They are fairly close to the end of plan check, and we hope to see that the building that's there today would be removed and demolished, hopefully in the next month or so, and then they would begin to construct both the Raising Cane Chicken Fingers drive-through, and I think the commission members, the applicant being here, and hopefully a good addition to our community, and then also a Chase Bank. So it will be converted from one building that's there today to 2 standalone buildings in the Rose Shopping Center. Dogging around, we have a theme of dog facilities in town. This one, as you might recall or have seen, the property has finally been cleared with the buildings that were there before. There were lots of issues with those vacant buildings and trying to get the tenants out of there. There were people there that didn't belong, and so that property owner finally completed the demolition. She's fairly close to getting a building permit to start construction of that project at that site. Mission Produce has a headquarters building that's been proposed. This has not been approved yet, but a significantly new commercial building in our community on Solar Drive that we hope to move through the process this year. Another, as I mentioned, doggy daycare. We have a theme here. Another one on Ventura Boulevard. This is under construction as well, so if you have pets, there'll be plenty of places for them to go in the city of Oxnard. This one's also moving forward and under construction. We also have Port Place Shops. The former Kmart Center is being renovated with a Starbucks drive-through, and really a refresher of this center, which is long overdue, and that's under construction as we speak. Esplanade Gateway. This is a commercial project that's been constructed. Almost 6,000 square foot multi-tenant building. You might recall there's a Starbucks that opened there as well, and then the other building to the I guess that's south, not quite occupied, but the Starbucks is up and running, and I drive by there every day on the way in, and there's always 6 or 8 cars in that drive-through, so it seems to be successful. Then a few institutional developments to note. One is obviously one that the Commission has seen, the Clinicus project, and I think the Commission knows this already. Upon your approval, it was appealed to Council. They did reduce the square footage of that building, something that the Commission suggested would be a good idea, and it was ultimately approved by Council late last year in December at the smaller square footage. You might recall it was about 41,000 square feet when you saw it. It had a significant parking reduction request. By reducing the square footage, they added additional parking. It still had a parking reduction, but it was something that was supportable, and the Council approved that, and we hope to see them under construction in the next year or so. So in short, they did what you told them to do. It just took a little while to get there. Then we have Gonzales Road Medical Offices. This is also under construction, 2-story, almost 30,000 square foot medical office building on Gonzales Road. Oxnard School District has a proposed school at Seabridge on West Woolley. This is something we're working with the school district on. As you might recall, on the right-hand side is a public park. On the left is the elementary school. There is some remnant city-owned property sort of within the middle of the school site. So we're working, we got council direction to seek a way of transitioning that property. It's really a remnant, almost unutilized piece of property that we own that we have to dispose of in order to make the school happen. So we're negotiating with the school district about how they can provide a financial benefit to the city for the ability to buy that property to clear the way for the school to move forward. So that's happening as well. And then a few industrial buildings that are worth noting as well. Elevar Distribution Warehouse on Elevar Street is approved, not yet under construction. Arctic Cold Storage, this is a very large building, as you can see, almost 600,000 square feet. It's proposed on Del Norte. This is early in the process. I think they have their first DAC in the next couple of weeks, but large refrigeration facility in our community. Trinity Church on Camino del Sol's well underway in construction if you have been by there. So that's moving forward as well. MWS Wire Industries on Camino del Sol, under construction as well, a little over 60,000 square foot industrial building. And then Cabot Industrial Building as well on Cabot Place, also under construction. So quite a bit of tilt-up industrial buildings happening in our community. And then Pacific Water Conditioning is also under construction on Eastman, about 24,000 square feet of buildings. And then SA Recycling is proposed. This is frankly a code enforcement challenge property that we're happy to see somebody coming in with a potential new development that will actually clean up the site from a code compliance perspective and put it in actually good order. So we're excited that this is moving forward, but it is still proposed and not yet approved. And important vehicle storage, if you don't know about this, you're not paying attention in the city of Oxnard. So this is the 34 acres at the corner of Wanimi Road and Perkins. This is a Port District proposal for surface parking. for their vehicle processing facilities. This is a shot of the corner of Winemi Road and Perkins. We have agreed with the port to do a full environmental impact report on this use. It's intended to be a temporary 5-year use of that site. That EIR is underway. I don't expect we'll see it released until summer of this year. But once that happens, this project will come before the Planning Commission for your review. So wanted to give you a heads up. I think you know this is happening as well. And then a couple of mixed-use projects that are sort of all of the above mixed together. Obviously, River Park has lots of activity there. There's the River Place senior living apartment facility and the 85-unit assisted living I mentioned previously are in process. One's completed and one's under construction. Cheesecake Factory is maybe some of the most exciting news of the year for the city of Oxnard. It's already completed and well being used in the collection area. And then there's the River Park Landing. This is the hotels proposed for River Park. They have been in plan check for quite some time. They haven't had a lot of activity lately, so we're checking in with the developer to see what's holding them up and see if they do plan on moving forward in 2020 or not. Our original agreement with them was that they were supposed to start construction by the end of 2018. They obviously missed that window, so we're still working to figure out what the next step is on that site. But that's 2 hotels. And then the landing is, sure. Yeah, well, it could be, yes. And then the landing is sort of directly behind those 2 hotels on Town Center Drive. It's multi-tenant. That's been approved. It's proposed, but it's consistent with the plan and the specific plan for River Park, and we expect that to move forward this year as well. And then this is a new one. This actually just went to DAC this week. It's the last remaining piece between the assisted living that's under construction and the river. By Four is the developer. It's a fairly large project, over 300 units on that site. It just had their DAC yesterday. So it will be moving forward through the entitlement process this year as well. Obviously, Wagon Wheel, lots of activity there. Total of, as you all know, 1,500 residential units in that project. Lots of activity there. They've moved into their for-sale project, for-sale product with 2 product types earlier towards the last quarter of last year. Obviously, some of the residential, and you see the parking structure for their next big phase is under construction now as we speak. So the building on the left was the first market rate residential to be built. Behind that in the picture is the first phase, which was the affordable project operated by Cabrillo. On the upper right are the first 2 buildings. They're much further along than this picture today of their for sale products along the freeway. It turns out to be I think it's about 10 or so buildings like this that will be built. These are for sale flat apartments. And then at the lower right, you see some of the amenities before the grass was laid in some of their park spaces. Wagon Wheel also, these are the condos I mentioned that are now in place in the first phase and not only under construction, but they've now started selling units in those buildings going forward. And then Rio Urbana, one that you just saw recently. So I know this is fresh in the Commission's mind. This was approved by you, 167 units. It does require council action, so it's not done yet. So those are now pending council consideration on the 4th of February. And as you also know, this requires an annexation, so there's a long still way to go, but the heavy lifting of the Planning Commission and you made really important differences to this project when you considered it late last year. Including adding 3 additional affordable units beyond what they originally requested. So that's good news. This is C Street Apartments proposed on C Street, 21 units, including 3 affordable. It's in the early stages of the process. Billboard Lofts, this is really the first project being submitted to the city under the downtown code that was adopted over the summer. It went into effect in early September. This is at 8th and A, 51 condominium buildings, condominium units. But this is the first time we've seen a project implement the downtown code, and we're excited to see this move forward this year. This is just a map I've used to show this is the amount of activity, most importantly, all housing in the downtown. So you can see Plaza Park in the middle of the screen at 5th and B, but these are just dots to show you we're looking at all the dots around Plaza Park. 3 of those are being negotiated with a company called Madison Park to do housing projects. We have the dot up on 2nd Street is right behind this building. You might have known we announced that we're looking at that site for the homeless shelter, and we'll just start that community process very shortly now. And then some of the other projects that we're looking at around the downtown. The 3 dots to the right of Oxnard Boulevard are remnant redevelopment properties. So we are most likely going to be seeking affordable housing projects on those 3 lots and doing an RFP, request for proposal, for those properties. The dot on the far left lower screen is property at C and 8th Street, which is, we expect to see an application for as many as 173 units on that property in the next couple of months. So we're seeing the fruition of the impacts of adding zoning in our downtown. And then a couple other large specific plans that will make their way to the Planning Commission. The first is Teal Club. It's proposed. It's been proposed for quite some time. We are in the process of completing the environmental impact report for circulation. And once that's circulated and comments are received, and we will be bringing the specific plan to the Planning Commission for your consideration later this year. Significant piece of property near the airport. And then obviously this is the Mulhart property, otherwise known as Northeast Community Specific Plan area. This is where the high school, the brownish area and the bottom of the screen is a proposed high school. The lower left corner is not included in the high school. It is included for residential purposes. And then the yellow at the top is a residential project. So we're working with the high school to implement their plan. Their hope is to be under construction later in 2020. The residential component is not there yet. We're just going to be starting to meet with that developer to move that project forward. So that's going to be something we'll be working on for the next year or 2, I suspect. Sorry, yeah.
So this is current farmland?
Yes. Yeah, it's the Mulhart Farm property. In fact, in that blue area at the lower left is where the home and barn is. The barn is just off the blue area, but that's where the family home is. And Mrs. Mulhart, I believe, still lives there. But it's been planned for development. It's been planned to be converted from farmland to development for years under the city's land use plan. It does have a specific plan that's being adjusted to accommodate the housing that's been proposed on the top and the high school. This originally was a specific plan for all residential, pretty much, with some minor commercial. The high school has swooped in to acquire some of it for that high school, and then the balance will be developed for residential. And then just some other things that aren't project specific. We're obviously working towards a local coastal plan update. That's a long process. We've provided policy draft language to the Coastal Commission staff, waiting for their responses, and then we'll be working that through. And this will be something that the Planning Commission will clearly see. We're looking at lots of issues like sea level rise and resiliency and all the issues associated with coastal policy that we'll be incorporating into that document as we go forward. So this has been a long time coming and will be something that we'll be working on for quite some time through the public process and the Coastal Commission process.
So wait.
Yeah.
Go back. Okay, so when you say a public outreach that includes the Planning Commission and City Council is inspected in 2020, is that going to be the draft LUP?
Yes, that we expect to, we are in the policy discussion with the coastal staff, but once we get through that, we'll have an actual LCP update to present to you and the public.
And evaluate.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's our hope.
Okay.
We will do that
I just
this year.
Know what to expect.
Yes,
Okay.
that will be a significant conversation at the Planning Commission, one that will take more than one meeting, I suspect. We also will be kicking off the next couple of months, an update to our housing element. So that our housing element next cycle is 2021 to 2029. We've been working closely with the Southern California Association of Governments to understand what our number is, just so the Commission has a sense of this. In the current cycle that ends at the end next year, we had about 7,300 units in our expectation to deliver. In that 8-year cycle, we've so far on track to get to about 6,000. So we've done fairly well for cities in Southern California. We expect the number, well, we know the number in the next cycle will be about 8,500. So it will go up, and we'll have to have some serious conversations about how to accommodate those housing units. And that's what the housing element will be all about, is how do we find capacity in the city to accommodate that number of units. And this just kind of, I'm not going to walk you through it, but just going to see we have a lot to do to work on that housing element by next year. And then if that wasn't fun enough, we think in 2021 we'll start in earnest a comprehensive update of the general plan. Our general plan is not that old compared to other cities, but our world changes and we want to keep up with that, and the rules have changed. So we will be initiating a comprehensive general plan update in 2021, 2022. We expect a 3-year process. Lots of community input, lots of public process, and it will land on the Planning Commission's desk for approval in that time frame. And then this is obviously something that's been working on for a while as well, the Ormond Beach Restoration and Access Plan. That was a plan, I think Commissioner Meyer was at the workshop that we had over the summer. We released that plan. We had a community workshop, a lot of community outreach, got some good feedback. We're working through that with our partners, the California Coastal Conservancy and the Nature Conservancy, to figure out how to implement that. And most of that's going to be about how do we find the funding that's necessary to implement this very aggressive plan to restore and provide access to the Ormond Beach community. And this is just an overview of it's 600 acres. It's a significant effort, but something that's really a jewel for our community, and we're working towards trying to preserve that, because we also know many people in our community don't know it exists. And so how do we do that? That's why access is important. And this is really just to conclude by saying we do try to provide this information on our website. We make it available. I think Scott and I were talking earlier today, because we haven't put together this presentation in a long time. We based it off one that Ashley Golden did, I think, 2 years ago, and a lot has happened since then. So we will probably put this on the website and try to update it every quarter or so. So because what's on the website now, when you go here, doesn't have a lot of visuals of the projects. This is probably good for the public to have access to. So with that concludes the presentation. And this was really just a receive and file to let you know what's happening across the city of Oxnard.
Thank you. Comment, questions? Oh. Okay, sure, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for bringing this to us, because it really gives a good visual. And I really like that Mission Produce headquarters. That's a really good design. I hope to see more designs like that in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move now to G2.
So G2.
Working session.
Yeah, G2, I'll go ahead and introduce this one. It really consists of 2 different components, and this is really meant to be a dialogue with staff and the Planning Commission, both with each other and then amongst yourselves as well. And there's really 2 parts of this. The first part is, as staff is preparing information for the Planning Commission, we want to make your job as easy as possible. You already have a difficult enough job taking in the information that we're giving you, deliberating in public, and how can we make that as easy for you as possible? So, and the way that we get that information to you is primarily through our staff reports and our public presentations. We haven't heard anything from planning commissioners that you think our reports are maybe lacking or something of that nature, but we also haven't asked that question. So we're kind of putting ourselves out there to you today to ask, are our staff reports acceptable to you? Is there different information that you're looking for that we're not providing to you in either the written form or the graphic form that could assist you? So we really are just trying to open up that conversation.
You want to leave it right there at that about staff reports? We can talk about that right now.
Sure.
Okay. Commissioners, discussion with staff about anything, any suggestions, criticisms, ideas that you have about staff reports?
Sure. Yeah.
Commissioner Fearing.
Yeah. So I think you actually corrected some of the things that I was looking for, which is when there are deviations, have a detailed explanation as why. And we saw that tonight with the Verizon tower. So keep it up. That was great. The other thing I also like to see is, you know, we obviously have some residential housing targets that we're trying to meet. And as we approve, it'd be really good to see a ticker, a way to measure that, maybe a way to look at it as a scorecard. So we have targets that we're trying to meet, and as we approve these, we actually can see that we're benefiting the community by approving affordable housing and so on.
Okay.
Vice Chair Chua.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Findings. If we're going through, since we're in the topic of deviation and all that, I mean, I would like to see a more solid findings, because, the findings that we normally say in our staff report is that since Section 16 point something, 437 or 697 says we can provide, or we're allowed to provide up to 25% deviation, we're just giving it, but there's no justification why. I mean, I've asked in the past whether there's anything in our municipal code that required findings to allow what type of deviation will be allowed. I mean, like, and one of the other findings that I've noticed is that it says and this is, if we're asking for, I mean, straight out answer. I mean, you're telling the commission that your finding is, one of the findings on a special use permit is that the location has enough room or shape to accommodate the project, but if there is a deviation, or if the commission grants a deviation in the standards, well, if you're asking me for deviation in standard, that tells me that the project does not fit. And prime example is that the Clinicas. I mean, I just didn't want to, publicly bring this up, but, how could you tell me that a project, I mean, that the site accommodates the project if you have such a huge, deviation from the code? I mean, if you're telling me that a code, that the site, that the project complies with deviation, then it's not, then that means it's too big for the site. I mean, am I making any sense?
No,
or
absolutely right.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, that's why I have.
Maybe some options, what options were looked at.
Right, what option, why? Exactly, I mean, thank you.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, I mean, have we explored everything else that this is the only option
Right.
that's going to happen? Because what I've noticed,
Well, we ended up talking about the options at the meeting with the applicant, the off-site parking.
Right.
The covenant for additional parking, the contractual longevity requirement that they couldn't commit to, but yet they were here talking
Asking
about
yeah.
it like it was already done. And that wasn't even before us. And then they had to come back. We had to do it again, and we still gave them grief. And they finally, I think that should have been done a little more forcefully in the planning department, saying, and I know the project came before you were in place. So, you were dealing with a remnant. I love the word remnant that you've been using throughout tonight. But so this was a remnant that was thrown on you. And maybe as the new guy, or the new team, you say that may have been how it was, but that's not how it is now. And our planning commission is really under a pretty good workload, and as is all our city staff, and it just doesn't fit.
and yeah, and I know that staff is trying to work with the business community, and I'm all for business, but we also need to balance the needs. I mean, if somebody asked me for a deviation in the standards, I mean, 8 out of 12, come on. I mean, it's kind of hard to justify. So, I mean, we probably need to, I don't know, I don't want to be accused as anti-business or anything, but we need to push back a little bit if we think that, there's so many deviation being asked. I mean, like the not the Cabrillo, but the Clinicas. I mean, it's just too questionable from my point of view. So
Yeah, when we did the Raising Cane thing and the flow through the parking, and the guy was very accommodating, but that I don't even know why that was even an issue? Who's looking at these plans to even get that configuration to us? I was like, who? Anyone looking at this drawing, and I'm not an architect, but
It needs to be scrutinized. yeah.
anyone looking at this drawing, you can see the cars are just going to back into each other. So,
Madam Chair,
yes, sir.
I think what I'm hearing, and I agree 100% with you guys, is that maybe when these projects are being proposed, that they kind of have two options. One, without the deviations, how they would fit their project in there.
Well, they don't. That's,
They won't show that to
They
you.
won't
But
show-
see, I
Developers
would
won't
like
show
to
you.
see that, because there comes that point where some deviations, you look at them and you think, well, how can we possibly approve these deviations? And that's, since coming onto the commission, that's been my biggest concern,
well,
is giving these, here's your option, this is what staff's recommending, and kind of deal with
If they do development like this, they should know what they're going into. Like
Yeah.
what I told Clinicus. I mean, they look at the site, they know what's going to fit,
Exactly.
and then they turn around and say, let's see if the city is going to give it to us.
Yeah.
You know, so we know. I mean, we're not, you know, we're not born yesterday. So, I mean, so these are the kind of things that we kind of like want to see. Let's push back. I'm willing to give, you know, reasonable accommodation for waivers. But how much? You see, I mean, they have to, the burden of proof is on them to show us that this is the only way it's going to work. Right?
If I could add
Sure.
to that, I think that some of the projects that come before us, we're not privy to the business that goes on before getting to us. So they may start out with, okay, we have this, amount of space to work with, but in order to get it financed, in order to get support for it, there are other concessions that the developer probably has to make before they can even get to the points of, so I don't believe that we would see a status quo or two options for every project.
and
I
they'd have
think-
to develop two sets of,
Right, and it costs twice as much,
Yeah.
and they may, it may not be viable, just going in as is. Also, a lot of the deviations are a part of the sweeteners that the city can offer to help encourage development. And I think a lot of that stems from when the funding source for a lot of city developments dried up. So the city had to go out on its own because the state pulled back all the money, and we had to go out and, make our own business. And,
but we're not supposed to consider that,
right, this is a discussion, but I'm just saying, this is why I think that I would be surprised if we saw developers bring in two options, because we're always going to choose the one that sticks as close as can to our standards.
Right, but the thing is, if this was an existing building, let's say, for example, they have an existing building and they have the constraints and they want to build it something else, fine, because there's already the constraint. But if it's a vacant building, it's a vacant lot, and they're building something, they're overbuilding it. I mean, there's no reason why they can't work around, the constraints of the property.
and they bought the property.
And they bought the property. They know what they're going into. That's why I don't want to sound, unsympathetic. I like what they do, but the problem is they have to work with our code.
Right, but I'm just saying that I think that we have to we have to consider it. I've seen, since I've been on the commission, I've seen some projects that were lost to the city because, not necessarily because we didn't want to make concessions, but maybe the community didn't want to make concessions. An example would be the Indian grocery store restaurant.
Oh, that was,
That
what a shame.
there was
Oh, the 7-Eleven?
No.
Oh, no.
No, it was on Second Street next
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Burrito Express.
Burrito Express.
That was a little bit of a disappointment.
Yeah.
On how that worked out.
Okay,
Right.
well, rather than this being a reflection on how we voted and how the community came in and participated, I think staff is looking for some dialogue about what information they're providing to us, and is there anything that we think we need or that they could do better?
There's,
Any suggestions?
I do have a few things. I got kind of sidetracked with that. First would be, I would like to just see no more than 3 items per meeting, because, you know, we never know how long it's going to take to get through one. So when we have those agendas where there's more than 3 items, that makes for a really challenging meeting. I'd also like to know if there's a way of, if a project comes up and that project is also being worked by another department within the city, let's say housing, I would like to see any input that housing may have on that ongoing project. It's just some reference material. And that way I think that will help us be a lot more vigilant in debating or deliberating our projects. And then along the same lines, any previous rulings or similar projects, just as reference material, I think would be good. So when we're all home reading these big stacks, if I have something that, you know, was, well, this was similar, then it may help me come up with some more meaningful questions.
Precedent.
Yeah, exactly. And that would be my input. Thank you.
Commissioner Meyer.
I would be interested in the sustainability lens of things. Maybe perhaps there's a way, and I don't want to put undue burden on staff to, you know, recreate things that are more trouble than it's worth, but something where it becomes easier and cleaner to see, you know, where does this project lie in terms of sustainability. You know, when I think of like Rio Urbana, it's like I wonder if there was much thought given from the developers as to what could be done in that way, if they even had that lens in their minds as they were considering it. And maybe it's something on the back end, you know, their association, their homeowner association could decide to do something more grand with solar, for example, instead of window dressing. Things like that. I know like we have a zero water policy, and so that kind of takes care of itself in that regard. But I know Kathleen is the manager right over like environmental sustainability. So maybe a way to make it easy for us to kind of see what's been analyzed in that regard, and that there has been due consideration, you know, given where we are in history at this time.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to insert myself, but I think that's a good example where we are, one of the things we didn't mention is we're also embarking on a climate action plan this year. We're on the verge of selecting the consulting team, taking that contract to council probably in February. That's going to be the instrument to really set in place the city's sustainable policies when it comes to climate action issues. That policy framework will give us the ability to apply that to projects coming forward
Yeah,
before the commission.
finally.
So
Finally.
I think that's going to be something that you'll all be involved in over
Fantastic.
the next 18 months.
If I may, on the staff report.
Sure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I like the way that the staff report's written concisely. I mean, short staff reports, straight to the point. You know, it would be nice. I mean, I don't know if I share the same sentiment, but if I see shorter paragraphs, it's kind of easier to read them. So, I mean, I like I said, I mean, shorter paragraphs I think are easier to read. I mean, let's highlight the important points that you guys are making. Let's say, like, you know, important points that you're making, like on this case, you know, at 33 feet, this one, it won't work because of this, this, and this. Or we added a condition about the oak, I mean, the landscape tree. So, you know, kind of.
Because,
You know, just a very quick, But all in all, I mean, you know, I like the conciseness of the staff report. So, but if we can shorten the paragraphs a little bit, I mean, because it kind of, I'm wearing glasses. I mean, if I'm reading it, I get cross-eyed.
I now have two.
Seriously use a ruler to read this, because, I get lost, but that's me.
No, I agree.
Thank you.
It's my turn.
Oh, your turn. Yeah.
Well, I'm very pleased with the progression of quality in the staff reporting since this team has come aboard. I'm not struggling for information like I did in the past. There are some questions, of course, that come up, but I appreciate that staff is basically available to answer any questions. If I'm missing something, I feel I can ask and get it. By the way, the quality of the resolutions that I'm receiving has improved as well. What commissioners may not know is that all these resolutions come to me. I have to read them all. I read them all, every page and word, and there were times when I had to edit and punctuation was off, and the punctuation is so important because that's the legality of the document. If your comma is in the wrong place, it could really hold you up in court, and that was a lot of issues that were going on with River Park back in the day. I'm noticing that the quality of the writing is much better. I think the PowerPoints are on point. I agree that I would like to have a summary of where we are every quarter, something as far as achieving our housing goals. Just to have it, because the housing element will be coming to us, and it's nice if we have that progression already in our mind.
I also realize we're required to do an annual housing report on our progress in implementing the housing element.
Right.
We do it, we send it, we put it on the website, we send it to the state, but we don't provide it to you. So we can definitely give you the annual report.
Yeah.
And then provide you a progress as we go along.
And just how we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this was very educational tonight on the progress, the projects in progress, which I just have a question about that. What's the thinking behind putting a U-Haul facility where the Levitz is? For all the people moving in, they can move pick up their U-Haul in Oklahoma and
I think it's
drop it off in Oxnard?
As the new guy, but not the totally new guy, Scott and I both scratch our head about why that would be the best use for that property. So, but that was well in play before we both got here.
It was?
And still in play. Can we unplay it? I mean, obviously it's private property. It's consistent with the zoning existing building, but when we think about our housing challenges, we are that's a site that has great potential. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and look where it is.
And
I mean, you built right around it. You've got River Park, and you've got Wagon Wheel, and you've got the Esplanade there, and you've got a
delivery trucks and regular traffic, and now you're going to put U-Haul
and
vehicles.
the financial plot, everything.
And one of the things that, as you know, that one of the first things we'll be doing with the housing element is looking at our site inventory. And what sites do we have that are available either because they're vacant or they're underutilized from a housing perspective.
That'd be a killer high-rise.
And to find 8,500 units in the city of Oxnard, we're going to have to go up and look at sites like this.
Right.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, what's happening at the, which I didn't see, or maybe I did, that 140 East Esplanade, the hotel, is that in the Financial Plaza? Is that the third development lot where the third tower was going?
Yeah.
No.
No, that's
The True Hotel?
It's right next to Gold's Gym in that the Esplanade Shopping Center.
Oh, so it's on the other side.
Correct.
What's happening with the third office building location in the Esplanade? Yes.
I think we've determined that original approval that included the third tower has
And-
expired.
Yes.
So
We gave
that's
it a
not-
2-year.
Yeah,
We gave it a 2-year because they were dragging feet.
yep.
And
it's-
so we
It's gone,
put their feet to the fire.
yeah.
And so
Oh,
Are-
it's-
they're
it's-
gone?
It's now, well, that entitlement's also gone. That third tower approval is no
is
longer
now
valid.
gone.
Yeah,
And so they're probably happy with that, so they don't have to build a tower. They can now build something lesser
We-
than the
We
tower.
are having preliminary conversations with the Topper Tower Group about sort of a long-term plan for that property, but it's very preliminary.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. The transit center, something, you know. Yeah, trolleys all through, you know,
But most importantly, when is Bolero gonna get
People-
completed?
bringing the people into,
It's
Into
not actually
work.
I mean, it's been announced, but they haven't filed for building permits yet, so,
They have the signs out there, the building, right?
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Bolero is.
It's a bowling alley at the
Yeah,
General
River
Chen,
Park.
General
Collection.
Chow.
General Chow's place.
Oh, right.
Okay, anything else, commissioners?
One in Wagon Wheel that's gonna come up?
It's gone, no.
Oh.
Anything else? Okay, planning commission business. Oh, I've got the wrong glasses on. And I tried the bifocal thing, and all I kept doing was this, and everyone thought I was always saying yes. So I had to change that. Yeah, exactly. Okay, planning commission business. We have some business. We have to nominate a new chair and a vice chair for this year, 2020. So I'll open the nominations for chair at this time. Personally, I think we've been functioning pretty well. And I think our 2 new commissioners are going to training in March, April, whenever it is. And I think it would be a good idea to continue as we've been doing with me and Chua here until next election, next term. I think you're going to be more on track, more familiar with the vocabulary, the process, the state requirements that are really going to be coming forth on the EIRs that we're going to be looking at, and that the local coastal plan is going to be huge. So I don't know, that's just my thought. I open it to other commissioners.
Go ahead. I was actually not thinking that. I was actually gonna consider myself for the chair position. Yes, I am the newest member to the commission, but I believe with guidance from you, who is the senior member on the commission, could help me with it. But that's just my opinion on that. So
Okay?
if it's official, then I say I nominate myself as the 2020 chair.
Okay, well, it is official. So anyone else want to be nominated or considered for the position? Okay, I'll take a vote first on Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner
The protocols that we laid out in the memo, where anyone can nominate anyone, including themselves,
right?
and then the vote is done in the order that the nominations would happen.
Oh,
So-
okay, so I'll put myself first.
That's the way that I would
Okay,
see it. And
sorry.
A simple majority vote
Okay.
is all that it takes.
So I can do all in favor?
Mhm.
All in favor? For me to be the chair for 2020.
For the record, could we do actually a roll call? I think that would be
A roll
better
call?
to be
Okay, that's
clear.
fine.
Yeah.
I've never participated with it this way, so, sorry. Okay, let's have a roll call.
Chair Frank,
Yes?
Vice Chair Chua,
Yes.
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
No.
Commissioner Fearing,
Yes.
Commissioner Dozier.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So now,
Okay.
we don't
That's it?
vote for Chavez?
Nope, we don't
No,
have to
okay.
go on to another vote.
Okay, thank you
because-
very much.
So Chair Frank
So
continues.
for vice chair, I would nominate Vice Chair Chua for the 2020 term.
I would nominate Commissioner Fearing.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Sanchez,
Well,
even though he's not here.
does he know you're doing that?
No, I don't think
Well-
so.
I would nominate
I mean, can,
Commissioner Chavez.
Look,
All right.
co-
Excuse me. Okay.
okay,
excuse me.
question
Let's-
to
let's-
staff, yeah.
Go
I,
ahead.
if it makes it easier, I will remove myself from being vice, because, you know, if we have a lot of people being voted on here,
Well, I
there'll be
I
no,
would ask that you not do that.
okay.
Yeah, if that would be the case, I would nominate Vice Chair Chua to continue as vice chair.
Right.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I was just going to ask staff, is that allowed to nominate someone that's not here?
Yes,
Oh,
you
okay.
can.
Oh, what if well, if he says he doesn't want to do it? Well, I mean, like I'm just saying.
Then if
Then we
a
can have
person who is
another
not
election at the
here,
next time. Right,
then
okay.
correct, they would decline, and
Okay.
then we would re-agendize.
Okay. So the first vote we have is
Yeah,
on,
the order that I had was
Chua.
Vice Chair Chua, renomination, then Commissioner Fearing and Commissioner Sanchez were the orders that were nominated.
is that right? Okay. So
So,
taking the vote on Vice Chair Chua
correct.
to continue for 2020. Roll call.
Chair Frank,
Yes.
Commissioner Fearing,
No.
Commissioner Dozier,
No.
Commissioner Chavez,
no.
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chua.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, who's next?
Commissioner Fearing.
Okay, Commissioner Fearing.
No.
No.
No, I withdraw.
Oh, you withdraw?
I would withdraw, yeah.
Okay.
There's a possibility I might not be here in 2 months, so.
Oh, well, that's one of the reasons why I say the person should be here to say.
Yep.
Okay,
Then we
okay.
would,
So next is Sanchez?
Sanchez.
Okay,
Commissioner Dozier,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Can I abstain from that?
why?
Well, Sanchez isn't my choice, and
Then vote
the one
no.
here. So I guess no then.
Commissioner Meyer,
No.
Vice Chair Chua,
Wait, how many no's is that?
I think that's
3.
1, 2, 3.
3.
Gosh. Yes.
Chair Frank,
Yes,
motion passed.
yes.
What's the vote,
No,
please?
3-3.
It's 3-2? No, wait. No,
I think
Oh
it's
my
3 to
God.
3.
3-3.
3 to 3 would fail.
That fails.
Okay.
You know what, I really don't.
Let me nominate
I
myself
don't
again.
enjoy
Let's try this.
Acrimony. I don't like it.
Okay, let's
Okay.
try this again. I will nominate myself again, please.
Okay, but now I have to go in order. Who's next? Chua?
Vice Chair Chua.
Okay,
I'll
But we're-
nominate myself then.
okay, so we're going to,
So we would go to, in the order of nominations, so.
it's now Chua and then Chavez.
correct.
Okay, so roll call for Chua.
Vice Chair Chua,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
No.
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Fearing,
No.
Commissioner Dozier.
Yes.
Motion passed?
How
or-
about me? How about my
Oh,
vote?
yeah, sorry. Chair Frank?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we're done on that item.
Just this one. Pretty much did.
Community development staff updates, I think.
I think the only one we have is we have 2 commissioners, as you mentioned, going to the League of Cities training later this year, Commissioner Chavez and Meyer.
I'm sorry?
We have 2 commissioners going to training at the League of Cities, their
Oh, good.
Commissioner Institute. So
Oh,
just wanted to
good.
note that,
Excellent.
and that's it for staff
Okay.
updates.
Yeah, it's really fun. No, it's a lot of fun, and you learn a lot. Okay, thank you very much. We stand.
Thank you.
Thank you.